We've all been there, haven't we? That little plumbing issue pops up at home. Maybe a faucet won't stop dripping, or drains just slow.
Yeah, that gurgle sound.
Exactly. So you call a plumber, hoping for a simple fix.
Right.
But sometimes what you get feels less like a service call and more like you're haggling on a used car lot.
Unfortunately, yeah, those high-pressure situations, they're not that unusual.
Hmm.
And when it's something vital, like your home's plumbing, you feel kind of vulnerable and, well, that can definitely be exploited.
That's exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. We're looking into, let's call it the murkier side of the plumbing business.
Mm-hmm.
And our guide for this is Dennis. Now, Dennis isn't just any plumber. He's actually a retired U.S. Navy chief.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he swapped ship systems for home systems, and now he owns Veteran Plumbing Services, serving a big chunk of Northern Virginia, Fairfax, Lowdown, Prince William, all those places.
So he's seen a lot, I bet.
He really has. The good, the bad, and frankly, the stuff that just makes you shake your head.
Right. And Dennis has kindly shared some of the most common and honestly pretty shocking tactics he's seen or heard about from homeowners.
So our mission today really is to arm you, the listener, with the knowledge.
And maybe a bit of healthy skepticism.
Yes. And maybe a laugh or two, like Dennis suggests. So you can spot these red flags and avoid companies that aren't exactly, on the up and up.
Because knowing this stuff isn't just about avoiding a hassle.
No, it's about saving real money.
And a lot of stress.
Definitely. So Dennis says a lot of these questionable things start with something pretty common sounding. Upselling.
That's a big one. So a plumber shows up for, let's say, that leaky kitchen faucet we mentioned.
Okay, simple fix. Right.
You'd think. But then suddenly the conversation turns to all sorts of extra things, often things you don't really need.
Like what? What kind of things?
Well, Dennis has heard countless stories. Plumbers pushing for brand new, fancy faucets, complex water filtration systems.
Even if the water's fine.
Exactly. Or suggesting you replace pipes that are actually working perfectly okay.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe throwing in a new shower head. Or an expansion tank that's for the water heater.
Ah, the expansion tank, right. So it's the classic while I'm here situation.
Yeah, but sometimes it gets dialed way, way up. And Dennis points out, the reason isn't always about what's best for your house.
Okay, so what's the real motivation then?
Well, he's heard that in some of the bigger companies, the technicians actually get a commission for selling all these extras.
Ah, there it is. So that friendly suggestion.
Might be more about hitting their sales targets than actually improving your plumbing.
Okay, so how do you tell the difference? How do you know if it's a genuine recommendation or just a sales pitch?
That's the tricky part. Dennis suggests looking at a few things, like the context.
Yep.
Is it just a casual, hey, you might want to think about this someday? Or is it more like, you absolutely need this right now? Yeah, pressure is a big one. Yeah. Do they back off if you say no thanks? Or do they get pushy? Maybe start saying your current setup is about to fail, but without really showing you why.
Right, it's that gut feeling again. Are they clearly explaining why you need it? Maybe even pointing out the actual problem.
Or is it just vague talk? Maybe trying to scare you a little.
Dennis shared an example, didn't he, about a water softener.
He did. A homeowner was pushed really hard to get this expensive water softener installed. But the local water reports clearly showed the water wasn't even hard. It made absolutely no sense in that situation.
Wow. So what's the advice there?
Well, Dennis says if you feel that pressure, or if the explanation just sounds fishy, don't be afraid to question it.
And get a second opinion.
Absolutely. Always consider getting a second opinion for anything major or anything that feels off. A good plumber should be happy to show you the corrosion, explain the issue clearly.
Whereas the shady ones,
they might get defensive or maybe ramp up the scare tactics.
Okay, so we've covered the unnecessary add-ons. But Dennis mentioned things can get even more serious, right? When they start recommending whole system replacements you don't need.
Oh, yeah. This is where Dennis says he really sees red.
I can imagine.
Because, look, sometimes a big replacement is necessary. Things wear out.
Sure.
But he's seen so many cases of just outright deception, especially with things like water heaters and sewer lines.
Yeah.
Industry reports back this up too. A lot of scams revolve around selling these big ticket items when a simple repair would have done the job.
Okay, this sounds serious. You mentioned a story from Fairfax, the water heater explosion scare.
Yeah, this one's a doozy. A customer gets told by this big-name company that her water heater is literally about to explode.
Seriously?
Seriously.
Yeah.
Because of some, minor corrosion on an outside pipe. They even threw in that it was a code violation, the ticking time bomb.
Oh my gosh, I'd be panicked.
She was.
Yeah.
Totally panicked. Agreed to a brand new water heater on the spot.
And the cost? Let me guess.
Almost $7,000.
$7,000 for a standard water heater.
For a standard 50-gallon gas unit.
Yeah.
It's an outrageous price.
And the worst part is?
The worst part, according to Dennis, is that the original heater probably just needed a simple, cheap fix.
Like what?
Could have been a bad heating element, maybe a faulty thermostat, things that regulate the heat. Relatively easy fixes.
So instead of diagnosing it properly,
they either didn't know how, or more likely, Dennis thinks, they saw a chance for a massive sale. Using that fear it's going to explode when a popping noise is usually just sediment, not impending doom.
Wow. It's that replace first, fix never approach you warned about.
Exactly. And it's not just water heaters. He told another story, a $4,300 clog.
Okay, what happened there?
Homeowner has a main sewer line clog. Calls company A, they run a camera down for a couple of minutes.
Standard procedure.
Right, then immediately say, nope, got to dig up the whole line, replace everything. Slaps down a quote for $4,300.
Whoa, just like that.
Just like that. Jumped straight to the most disruptive, most expensive option.
Did the homeowner go for it?
Thankfully, no. They felt something was off and got a second opinion.
Smart move.
Very smart. Plumber number 2 comes out, takes out a basic drain snake.
Like the standard tool?
Yep. Clears the clog in about half an hour. Total charge, $75.
75 versus 4,300.
It's staggering, isn't it? The first diagnosis was just, quick look, most expensive solution. That's a huge red flag jumping to replacement without even trying a simple fix first.
Absolutely. And Dennis says this isn't rare, right? He mentioned a kind of scam playbook for sewer lines.
Yeah, he's seen a pattern. It often starts with a really cheap drain cleaning deal, like suspiciously cheap.
To get in the door.
Exactly. Then maybe they don't quite clear the clog properly, maybe use the wrong size tool on purpose.
So they can say,
see, it's unfixable. Your whole line is shot. It's collapsed. It's damaged beyond repair.
And then comes the big quote for replacement.
Precisely. And here's where it gets really sneaky. They might show you camera footage of a terribly damaged pipe.
As proof.
But Dennis warns, sometimes it's not even your pipe they're showing you.
No way. They use fake footage.
It happens. Generic clips of disaster pipes used just to scare people into a $10,000 plus replacement job.
That's incredible. When the real fix might have just been
a proper thorough cleaning. Or maybe just repairing one small section. Always ask to see the camera footage of your line and get a written explanation of exactly what the camera supposedly found.
Okay, so the big takeaway here for listeners.
Dennis is adamant. Get a second opinion on any major plumbing work. Period.
Don't let them pressure you into deciding right away.
Exactly. Make them explain why replacement is the only option. A good plumber can show you the evidence actual damage, test results, and talk through the pros and cons of fixing versus replacing.
But if they immediately jump to replace everything now or face catastrophe.
Huge red flag. Run, don't walk, to get another quote. A reputable plumber has more tools than just replacement in their kit. They find the right fix, not just the most profitable one.
Right. Okay, so we've talked about unnecessary work, but what about when the work is needed, but the price just seems astronomical?
Yeah, let's shift to that. Excessive pricing, or as Dennis calls it, plain old price gouging.
We all know skilled work costs money, right? Emergency calls cost more.
Sure, that's understandable. But Dennis sees cases of just blatant overcharging for really simple things that use tiny, cheap parts. It often feels like they're banking on the homeowner not knowing any better.
He mentioned a news story example.
Yeah, unbelievable. A plumber tried to charge nearly $1,000.
For what? Repiping the house?
For a repair that took 5 minutes. 5 minutes. And used a part that cost $14.
You're kidding? $1,000?
Not kidding. And another one, a customer showed Dennis an invoice charging $179 for a tiny little drip leg pipe.
What's that?
It's just a small piece designed to catch sediment. Cost maybe $2 at a hardware store.
$179 for a $2 part.
Dennis called it highway robbery. And I think he's right. It's not just markup. It's something else.
So where do these crazy charges come from? Big company overhead.
That can be part of it. Or sometimes, Dennis says, it's just greed. They might try to hide it in vague service fees or make a simple job sound incredibly complex.
So you should be suspicious if the quote just makes you gasp.
Pretty much. Or if the parts cost Seems way out of whack with what you could find yourself. A reasonable markup is normal, sure, but hundreds of %. That's questionable.
And Dennis mentioned a really slimy tactic, too, the affluence fee.
Ugh, yeah. That one's particularly nasty. It's when a contractor basically sizes you up, looks at your house, your neighborhood, maybe even your car.
And decides you can afford to pay more.
Exactly. So they inflate the price just because they think you have money.
Yeah.
Dennis finds that completely unethical. Pricing should be based on the job, not on how wealthy someone looks.
Absolutely. So, bottom line on pricing.
Trust your gut. If a price feels way too high, it probably is. Get comparison quotes.
See what others are charging for the same work.
Right. A quick search online or a call to another local plumber can give you a ballpark idea pretty quickly. If one quote is wildly higher than others, ask why.
And don't be afraid to push back or say no if it feels wrong.
It's your money. You have the right.
Okay, so we've hit unnecessary work, inflated prices. Now let's get into the really manipulative stuff. Misleading severity claims and scare tactics.
Yeah, this is where it gets ugly. Some plumbers will take a minor issue and blow it way out of proportion.
To scare you into a big sale.
Exactly. Trying to make you think your house is about to have some kind of plumbing meltdown. Dennis, with his Navy background, really emphasizes the difference between a real emergency and, say, a bit of surface rust.
We already touched on that water heater explosion thing.
Prime example. Real water heater explosions are incredibly rare.
Mm-hmm.
But warning about detonation because it's making popping sounds, which is usually just sediment, like we said.
And then pushing a $3,000 emergency replacement.
Giant red flag. Classic scare tactic.
What about the code violation boogeyman?
Ah, yes. Another favorite. They point to something minor, maybe some corrosion on a pipe, an older fitting that still works fine.
And declare it a serious code violation.
Yep, implying you could get fined, face legal trouble, demanding an immediate, costly fix.
But is it usually that serious?
Often, no. Building codes matter, obviously, but a little rust or an old part isn't usually an urgent legal crisis. They're often misrepresenting the code or exaggerating the consequences.
Dennis had that example of the clean-out plug, right?
Yeah, an old, perfectly functional clean-out plug on a drain pipe. Plumber called it illegal and tried to pressure the homeowner into replacing it unnecessarily, using those scary, official-sounding words.
To intimidate.
Pure intimidation. And Dennis says it can get even worse, especially with vulnerable people, like the elderly. He's heard stories where they're threatened with imminent flooding, the house collapsing, neighbors suing them, unless they agree to this huge repair right now.
That's awful, preying on fear like that.
It's reprehensible. Good plumbers just don't operate that way. They don't need to bully you.
So what do you do if you're faced with these scare tactics?
Dennis says, ask for clear proof. Demand explanations.
Like, show me exactly where the pipe is about to burst. Why do you think that?
Precisely. Is it actually leaking? Is it cracked? Is there weird pressure? Someone using scare tactics will probably get vague or double down on the fear. A real pro will calmly show you the actual risk, if there is one, in plain English.
And if they mention code violations?
Dennis suggests calling your local building department. They can usually tell you if it's a real issue or not.
And again, second opinion.
Always. Dennis has done second opinions where the situation was nothing like the first plumber described. Just being able to tell someone, no, your house isn't about to fall down is huge. Don't let fear short-circuit your thinking.
Okay, let's talk about emergencies. That's when you're really vulnerable, right?
Right.
Water spraying everywhere.
Absolutely. And Dennis warns that some plumbers really take advantage of that stress. High pressure, inflated prices.
Because you just want it fixed now.
Totally understandable.
Yeah.
Dennis paints a picture. Midnight. Pipe bursts, you're freaking out. Plumber arrives, relief.
Ew.
But instead of just fixing the burst pipe, they launch into, oh, you need to repipe the whole basement, risk of future bursts. And they hit you with a massive estimate right there while you're literally standing in water.
Oh, man.
Feeling trapped.
Exactly. Especially late at night. Dennis says be really wary if a plumber refuses to talk about simpler fixes or just says, no time, gotta do the big job now.
What should a reputable emergency plumber do?
They should focus on stopping the immediate problem first. Stop the leak, get things stable.
Not pressure you into huge decisions on the
Be
spot.
late. They might say, hey, we should probably look at this later. But the focus is the crisis now. They won't demand a full basement repipe at 2 a.m. Okay. Now, emergency service often costs more. That's expected.
It usually does, yes. But Dennis warns about bait-and-switch pricing here, too.
How does that work in an emergency?
You might get quoted a reasonable call-out fee, But then the final bill is padded with all sorts of extra work you never explicitly approved, done while you were too stressed to notice or argue.
So try to get some kind of estimate first, even then.
Always try. Even a basic, okay, stopping this leak is going to be roughly X amount. Any plumber who says we'll figure out the price later in an emergency, that's a red flag.
And Dennis had one more tip for emergencies about add-ons.
Yeah, politely refuse the while we're here stuff, unless it's absolutely critical to stopping the immediate flood. Save those non-urgent extras for later.
Don't let panic turn a specific fix into a massive unplanned bill.
Exactly. Emergency focus is the emergency fix.
Yeah.
Sales pitches can wait.
Okay, moving on. Bait and switch pricing and vague quotes. We've seen those flyers, right? Super cheap drain cleaning.
Oh, yeah. $49 drain special, $99 water heater tune-up. They look great. Grab your attention.
But Dennis says,
Often the hook for a bait and switch. They lure you in cheap just to get inside your house.
okay, how does the switch happen? That $99 drain cleaning.
Well, Dennis points out, read the fine print. It might only cover, say, the first 10 feet of pipe.
And most clogs are further down.
Usually. So they snake 10 feet, then say, oh, the clog's further, that'll be X dollars per extra foot. Suddenly your $99 deal is $300, $500.
Ah, gotcha. What's another variation?
The plumber comes for the cheap tune-up or whatever, but then discovers a huge problem.
Conveniently.
Very conveniently. Oh, this minor clog, it's actually a collapsed pipe, needs full replacement. Or this tune-up revealed a critical safety hazard, need a new water heater today.
So the cheap deal is just the entry point for the big upsell.
That's the game.
And even without those specials, vague verbal quotes are risky too.
Definitely. Dennis hears this all the time. Plumber says casually, oh, probably around $200-300.
And the final bill.
$800. And when you question it, they say, oh, that was just a rough guess, or we ran into complications.
What about the mental tally?
Yeah, that's where they never give you anything in writing. Just keep adding costs in their head. We'll figure it out as we go.
Then halfway through?
Oh, this is trickier than I thought. The price is going up. By the end, the bill is way bigger than you ever imagined. Or they just start working without any, quote, finish, and hand you a huge bill. Now you're stuck.
Okay, so how do you protect yourself from this? Bait and switch, vague quotes.
Dennis is really clear here. First, insist on a written estimate before they start any work, unless it's truly tiny.
What should be on it?
Specific work detailed out, total cost. Honest plumbers do this routinely. If someone refuses or makes excuses, big red flag.
And read the fine print on deals.
Absolutely. Ask exactly what is and isn't included in that low price. Be really skeptical of super low phone quotes, too. For most jobs, a good plumber needs to see it first to give an accurate price.
And finally, set boundaries.
Yes. Tell them clearly, you are only authorized to do the work on this written estimate. Anything extra needs my approval first, also in writing if possible.
So if they find something else?
They have to stop, discuss it with you, get your okay, and agree on the extra cost before they proceed. You have the right to pause the work if things feel like they're getting out of control price-wise. Transparency is key.
Okay. Now, what about something maybe less obvious but still problematic? Skipping permits.
Right, this happens more behind the scenes, but Dennis stresses it can cause major headaches for homeowners later.
Why's that? Seems like it might save time or money up front.
It might seem that way, but certain jobs like replacing a water heater, major pipe rerouting, legally require permits from your local authority.
To ensure safety codes are met.
Exactly. So if a plumber suggests skipping permits, it's a huge warning sign. It might mean they aren't properly licensed themselves. Maybe they don't have the right insurance.
Or they're planning to cut corners and don't want an inspector seeing it.
That too. Dennis says if a contractor says permits are just red tape, or worse, ask you to pull the permit, run away.
So what are the actual risks to the homeowner if work is done without a needed permit?
They all fall on you, unfortunately. If that unpermitted work fails and causes damage, say, a flood, your insurance might deny the claim.
Oh, wow.
You could also get fined by the town or city. Dennis has even heard of people being forced to tear out the brand new work and have it redone correctly, with permits. Talk about expensive.
Double cost. And selling the house.
Big problem. Unpermitted work can derail a house sale or force you to fix it and get permits retroactively. Major hassle.
And this relates to skipping inspections, too.
Yeah. After some jobs, like gas line work, proper testing or inspection is crucial. A shady plumber might just say, yep, all good, without actually doing the pressure test or whatever's needed.
Hiding bad work.
Could be. So make sure required inspections happen. If a permit was pulled, the inspector usually handles this. But even for smaller jobs, ask the plumber to show you it's fixed and safe.
So Dennis's advice on permits is simple.
Very simple. If the job needs a permit by law, insist it gets pulled. A reputable plumber will handle the process and be upfront about any associated fees. Trying to avoid permits is a sign you should find someone else. It protects everyone.
Okay, we have covered a lot of ground here. Lots of shady stuff to watch out for.
It's a lot to remember.
Which is why Dennis put together a kind of checklist, right? Red flags to keep an eye out for.
Yeah, quick summary. First, if they're cagey about showing credentials, their license, proof of insurance, maybe some references, reputable pros have this ready.
Okay, what else?
Big demands for cash only. Or wanting a huge chunk of money up front, like 50% or more before they've really done much. A small deposit for a big job can be normal, but large upfront cash is risky.
Got it. No written estimate.
Huge red flag. Refusing to put it in writing, pushing for just a verbal agreement, sets you up for trouble.
High-pressure sales tactics.
Absolutely. Feeling rushed, bullied, pressured into deciding right now. That's not how good business works.
What about those scare stories?
Super dramatic warnings, imminent disaster, voids your insurance, especially with no real proof. Be very skeptical.
And deals that seem too good to be true.
Usually are. If one quote is way, way lower than others, find out why. Also, watch out if extra workers just show up unannounced. You might get billed for labor you didn't need.
And if their only solution is always, just replace it.
Yeah, without really diagnosing the issue first. That's a sign they might be focused on big sales, not real solutions.
Then the permit thing again.
Asking you to pull permits or saying just ignore them. Definite red flag. If you see these signs, Dennis says, slow down, take a breath, and probably find another plumber.
Okay, so let's say you do suspect you're dealing with someone shady. What can you actually do to protect yourself in the moment?
Dennis has advice here too. First, ask tons of questions.
Like, why does this part need replacing? What happens if I don't fix it right away? Are there cheaper options?
Exactly. And really listen to how they answer. An honest plumber gives straight answers, doesn't get annoyed by questions.
Straight opinion.
Cannot stress this enough, especially for big jobs, or if your gut feels off. Dennis says it saved people thousands. Get multiple quotes if you can.
And verify those credentials we talked about.
Yep. Check online if their license is current. Look for reviews. Check the Better Business Bureau. Do a little homework.
Don't fall for fake urgency.
Try not to. Even if it feels like an emergency, take a second to think. It's okay to say, I need to think about this, or I need to talk to someone. It breaks their sales pressure.
Document everything.
Yes. Keep estimates, invoices, make notes of conversations if you're worried. Paper trails help.
And finally, trust your instincts.
Absolutely. You don't have to be a plumbing expert to know when something feels wrong or dishonest. Pay attention to that feeling.
And if you do get scammed or see a clear attempt,
Report it. State Licensing Board, local consumer protection agency. And leave honest reviews online. Warn other people.
it really comes down to being informed, being vigilant.
It does. And that's why Dennis built his company, Veteran Plumbing Services, the way he did. His motto really says it all. We only fix what is broken.
And he means that, doesn't he?
He really does. It means they fix the specific problem you called about. They don't go inventing others.
They explain your options clearly, no pressure for the expensive one.
Right. Clear explanations, transparent pricing up front in writing, and always getting the required permits, no shortcuts.
Dennis also mentioned the benefit of using a local veteran-owned business like his.
Yeah, for businesses like that, their reputation in the community, word of mouth, that's everything. They rely on trust and good work, not shitty tactics.
So hopefully everyone listening now feels a bit more empowered. You have the tools to spot these things and avoid getting ripped off.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power here.
And hey, if you're in Northern Virginia and need plumbing help or just want that honest second opinion, Dennis at Veteran Plumbing Services is out there ready to shoot straight.
Good to know. Happy plumbing, everyone, and stay safe out there.
And just to reiterate, all this fantastic insight comes straight from Dennis's years of experience on the ground, plus stories from homeowners and industry reports he's seen.